welcome to Mexpert Realtor Podcast. Today I have the privilege of being with Great American Title Company. And also we have a very special guest here with us, and it is Miss Lisa Bevel. Lisa.
Hello.
Including all of your titles, no pun intended. Ha ha ha. Can you please tell us your specialty of what you do?
Okay, so I am an underwriting attorney with Fidelity National Financial.
You're a real person.
I am a real person. I'm a
She
real
is.
person.
Underwriters are usually the ones that are like mysterious.
Exactly, and a lot of underwriting in the banking context these days has gone to a computer program that can sort of, look at all the information that real life people do and sort of make calculations. So I'm a real life person, and what I do is for agents like Great American Title across the state of Texas, I help them deal with title issues. So any bankruptcy, foreclosure, death, gap in the chain of title, which we'll talk about in a minute, or a death, we have to on a probate or something like that. I help them know what Texas law is so we can get that issue resolved so that we can get to closing.
Wow.
Because if that issue isn't resolved, we have to slow down the closing or not close until we can deal with the issue.
And those are not good things.
No, they're not.
And then I also have the beautiful Fran and the other beautiful Miss Kristen that are part, Kristen, right? Yes. That are part of Great American Title. So if you guys want to give just a brief introduction of what you do with Great American here in Missouri County.
Okay, I am business development here at Great American Title in Lake Jackson. I've been with Great American for 12 years, and I absolutely love what I do.
And we love what she does.
Hey.
She delivers the checks.
Yes. Yep.
We love what she does.
Yep. So I went from being a realtor to going into the marketing side for title. And so I still get to see all my friends in the real estate world, and I also deal with anyone that would bring us business. So any banking, investors, realtors, that is my life. So
That is your life, and you are very good at your life.
Aw, thank
we love
you.
We love Miss Fran.
Thank you.
And Kristen, I've had a very brief introduction with you.
Yes.
So just give a little bit about who you are.
Yep. I'm Kristen Traylor. I'm an escrow officer. I've been here for, I think, 11 years. I've been in the business since 1999. I started in Clear Lake, and then I came back down here to this area. I grew up and was raised in Angleton.
Okay,
So when
cool.
I started having my family, I wanted to be back in this area. So, and I work a lot with Lisa and all the other underwriters trying to clear title to get everything ready for closing.
Cool. Escrow, you said escrow officer. I didn't just learn that word yesterday, but Charles at Gateway Mortgage, he went over the mysterious word escrow. And it's nice to see there are people behind the scenes that work all those kinks out. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, I would like to know, and I'm sure newer agents would really like to know, what is it that a title company actually does?
So I would like to start that and let you take over. So when an order for title insurance is brought to the title company, we open an order and we search our plant. Do you know what a plant is?
Chain of title.
Very good.
Yeah,
Most people are like
woo!
aloe vera, rose, I don't know. What we're looking at is we're looking for a chain of title. If we have Lisa Bevel as the seller in the contract, we're going to search the back chain of title to make sure there was original deed from person A to B, B to C, C to D, and then D to Lisa Bevel. If Lisa Bevel's the seller on the contract and title's vested in somebody else, that's one of those curative matters that we're going to have to deal with. So we chain the title to make sure that our seller really is the person in title. If they aren't, if we find, maybe it was they inherited the property from a grandparent or something and will need a probate or an affidavit of heirship. Maybe a husband and wife took title together and only one of them is selling now. And we say, well, why isn't your husband here with you? Well, we got a divorce, so we got to look at their divorce. So we are looking to make sure we have the right sellers in our transaction. We need to make sure that they match up with the sellers in the contract, and if they don't, there's some curative involved. We also look to see, are there any liens or encumbrances like a mortgage or an abstracted judgment or federal tax lien, any of those things against the property. We'll have to deal with those at or prior to closing. And then the last thing is, in the commitment we issue and the policy we issue to the buyer and to the lender, if there is one, on Schedule B, we are going to have shown any restrictive covenants, utility easements, oil and gas easements, anything that is attached to the property that the buyer needs to know about. They need to know they're buying subject to the utility easement, the restrictive covenants, the building setback line. So the front end is doing a search on title, producing a commitment with items that need to be resolved. The actual at closing would be what she can tell you about.
Yes.
So, you want to know what we do, or?
Like in the process, well, I mean, I guess we can get to, once we get to closing, but as far as like once title is opened, you as the escrow officer, where do you come into play?
So once title's open, exam does their part, we get the commitment back and we see on Schedule A who's vested, if there's any curative we need to clear up on Schedule B or C. And then our processors help work with the real estate agents to clear those issues if there are any. We will assist you any way we can on trying to help clear those issues. And then once we have a clean title, that's when it'll come to the escrow officer. We'll work up numbers with the lender if there is a lender involved. And then based off of the contract, we'll work those numbers into a settlement statement and then get that out to all the parties.
Cool. Yeah, I've only actually seen one real one before.
A lot more to
I'm
come.
working on it. We're working on it, Lord. Let it be. Lisa actually just gave a training. She just did a class on probate and issues with title that people have. And I think you said it, I think like 3 times, but stupid title company. You guys get such a bad rep. So
absolutely
what are
do.
some common misconceptions that people have about the title company?
Well, the 2 biggest things that pop into my mind, one is we didn't have those problems till the title company got involved.
Oh, yeah.
The problems were
You
there.
aired out her dirty laundry.
They just maybe they wouldn't have been aware of them until we do a title search and produce the commitment to let them know about that. What follows along with that is, well, you found the problem, you need to fix it. They think that we can take care of all these matters. Well, if we could have taken care of them, we would have before we made the requirement. So misconception is that we just try to slow down closing, right?
Right.
Let's just put
Right.
every roadblock in the way to stop closing. That's not what we do at all.
It's like the inspector. Like,
Yes.
it's like, you guys are finding all the blemishes and pimples in my property story. And it's like, no, we're actually trying to make it better.
That's
Right.
exactly right. And
Yeah.
just like you guys, we don't get paid until the deal closes and funds. So
Funded.
we're not exactly.
Yes.
We're not
Yes.
trying to slow it down at all.
Yeah.
Our ultimate goal is to make sure that the buyer is getting good, clean title to the best of our ability. We're getting all those liens released. We're paying them off at closing. We're making sure we've got the right people signing the deeds, so there's not anybody knocking on the buyer's door later on saying, "Hey, I still own an interest in this
Right.
property." So we're trying to take care of these. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's fun.
Mhm.
Okay, next big question, because I have had actually a previous client. They did not see the need to pay for title insurance. So, why is title insurance important not only for the seller but also for the buyer?
And I'm sorry I'm talking so much, you guys, but I
No,
love
you're good.
this. I love this. So I think why it's
I do
important.
too. I do too.
Why mainly it's important for the buyer. Again, I'm going to try to make a long story short. I talk a lot, but the fact is, we are trying to find any gaps in the chain of title, any missing heirs, an ex-spouse that still needs to deed the property. We need to, we're trying to clear those liens off the property because we want to take care of all those issues so they don't become a problem for the buyer. As I mentioned earlier in the class today,
Yes.
most other types of insurance are forward-looking. You pay a premium and you're sort of protected, against a future car wreck or you get sick in the future. We're looking back in the chain of title. We're taking care of problems now so there won't be a problem for the buyer later. We try to do claims preventative. And so, to me, it's so important to get title policy because as much as we try to clear title, you'll be shocked to know people lie to us sometimes.
No.
People
No.
lie to us sometimes.
No.
Never. Crazy.
Wow.
People forge deeds, people,
No.
forge releases, they do all these bad things, and so, we insure against those types of things. So even though we've done the best we could to take care of everything prior to closing, if an issue does come up later that is covered by our policy, we're gonna take care of it. Versus somebody who chooses not to get owner's policy, then, they don't get nothing from us.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, I have another title company's, schedule
Mhm.
of payments, but I love that with Great American Title, as far as real estate agents are concerned, whenever we're filling that out, for example, if we give like the buyer's net or the seller's net, what you're paying, in that line, it's not even that much whenever you're looking at it. And I think people just get intimidated by, it's just another cost that I have to pay out of pocket. And it's like, but it's the whole purpose of it is to protect you so that nothing else comes up and
Absolutely.
you have that. And okay, I'm gonna skip that next question. What are some of the most common issues? I love these because these are, I have a feeling that these are gonna be stories, but what are some of the most common issues that you have, looking at chain of title or something that just may be messy?
Well, again, I'll just pop up with the first one that always comes in my mind is divorce situations.
Ooh.
Because title goes into husband and wife.
Mhm.
And in their divorce decree, it may be very clear that the wife gets the property, or husband, but let's go with wife because there's women here. We're going to go with the women here. So the wife gets the property. Oh. The husband is to be divested of any interest, but the decree requires him to give a deed as to his half interest. Guess what happens most of the time? No deed is ever obtained, or it's not recorded in the real property records. So officially looking at the real property records, it looks like they're both still entitled together. So that means that even after the divorce is final, if an abstracted judgment, a federal tax lien, a child support lien is recorded against him in that county, it's going to attach to that property because of record, it looks like he still owns it. So until a deed is recorded, he's not divested of his interest. So things like that are the biggest things because...
So how would you advise to prevent that? What would you go about advising someone to prevent that?
Make sure that when they are in a divorce, that they're going through that process. If the divorce decree says a deed needs to be obtained, make sure they get that deed and get it recorded. I personally fault divorce attorneys for not following up. I believe that should be part of what they do for their client, but that's just something you got to do. Get that deed and get it recorded because until it's recorded, it looks like they still have an interest in the property. So,
Okay, so divorce. Do you have any other issues that you've seen that come up that become difficult?
Death and
Oh.
not being probated and
Yeah, can we go into that? So, because
No.
you just, no. Not yet, Lord Jesus, not yet. Just let us finish this podcast. No, but you had touched on that. That was something that you gave kind of as advice while we were leaving. Can you?
right, you
share
bet.
that?
If you're a listing agent and you're listing a property that somebody says they inherited from a parent, a grandparent, whoever, or they say they're an executor of the estate, know to ask some follow-up questions. If they say they inherited the property, we need to know, was there a will that has already been probated, or is there a will that is going to be probated by the family? If there was no will, then there's no way. No, I like to say that, but no. If there's no will that says who the decedent wanted their property to go to, then we look to the Texas laws of intestacy. And we will go on a fact-finding trip, right? We get like a treasure hunt to find out birth date and death date of the decedent, were they married at the time of their death, who
This
their
is
kids
a
were.
headhunter over here. She can track down some business too.
You bet. And so
Yeah.
we got to track down who the heirs are and to make sure, again, we have the right people signing the deed. So again, to summarize that, if you're a listing agent, somebody says they've inherited the property, or heck, going back to my first example, if they say they got the property in the divorce,
Right.
know that
Right.
we're going to need to find out, okay, was a deed recorded from the ex-spouse? By the way, if there wasn't a deed, if the divorce decree specifically says wife gets the property, husband's divested, we can also get a certified copy of the divorce decree to record, but we got to have something. So again, ask those questions because know that the title company is going to be asking those questions. Most likely on Schedule C of the commitment, we're going to ask about the probated will. We're going to ask about where the divorce was filed so we can get that information.
Now, as an agent, okay, you've mentioned schedules. So if you've never seen a title commitment,
Oh,
there's
sorry.
3 schedules, A,
Right.
B, and C.
Mhm.
I was advised and instructed you always look at A and you always look at C. Can you briefly explain the
Right.
importance of just each one and why we need to look at all of it, just to be thorough?
so you should look at A, B, and C.
Oh, okay.
So A will tell you who's vested in title. That way, if we do have some issues and somebody else, you'll know that. B is going to tell you any exceptions that we would take for minerals or reservations or
Restricted covenants.
restricted covenants, lack of access, any of those things. And then C is going to tell you any curative issues that need to work up, any liens, judgments. If we found a divorce but there's no deed, it's going to reference that we need that divorce decree and a deed from the spouse and along those items. It's going to tell you everything we have to clear up.
Okay, yeah.
Just one other thing, just as a nerd, real quick, there is
I
also
was nerd.
there's also a Schedule D. There's a
Yes.
fourth schedule.
Oh, there is.
It actually lists the ownership of the title company, the ownership of the underwriter, and what the premium's going to be and who it's going to be split between.
See, I
So.
missed that. Sorry. I blame the newness, but yeah. Okay. let's see. Oh, when a title defect is found, what happens?
So when we get the title work back and we realize there's curative issues, we're gonna contact the agent, if there's an agent, or the party that we need to work
You
with.
mean people try to go through title without an agent?
It happens every now and then.
I get no.
They're gonna say,
I
salmon.
get
Yeah.
That breaks my heart, but
So-
continue.
So we would contact them and tell them that the issue, what it is, and what, you know, we help them. If not, I mean, it's not for us to try to fix it, but we, as a courtesy, try to help the agents and
The title
people
company
fix.
can't just fix everything. We're paying you all this money.
As much as I try, oh, I can't. Yeah.
No, that's just one of
So-
the things that I hear. It's like, well, just let them deal with it. And it's like, no, this is your property. It's going to go to you. You take
Well, and I don't know all your personal information.
responsibility.
you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes we do find stuff on people that they did not want us to find out, and they're not happy with us. But you know, we're trying our best to help you, and we'll do what we can with the best of what you give us.
That's good. Say that one more time. Say that one more time.
We'll do what we can with what you give us.
Yes. Okay. Good. We're moving right along here. What is the title company's role during the closing of a home, other than the grand, check cutting? What is the role of the title company for closing?
Oh, what would our role be? We're a non-disinterested third party.
Right.
Oh, I do. Okay, that brings up a point. This was something that was brought up in real estate class. They said in the state of Texas, you absolutely have to close in a title company. They said that it's best to close in a title company. Can you explain, obviously, why that's best to do that and not just meet somebody at a Whataburger and transfer deeds?
You
Go ahead.
So, I could talk forever. So several things come to mind. One is because we do the search.
Mm-hmm.
We do the title search. We find the liens, the clouds on title, the gaps in the chain of title, and we require on Schedule C curative to fix those issues. And so we're going to make sure that gets done. We also have notaries here that know their job, that know how to look at licenses to make sure that they are legitimate and not fraudulent licenses. I mean, when we have it in-house, we know we have it under control and we're taking charge of everything. To just meet a mobile notary you never know. They might not know anything about title insurance, might not, and they may answer some questions incorrectly. They think they know the answers, but they answer things incorrectly. So to me, you always come to a title company to make sure everything is done correctly, from the title search, all of that, through prorating the taxes, which I don't know if we're going to go into that in a minute.
I would love for you to.
Can I go
Sure.
ahead and do that?
Yes,
It's sort of like
absolutely.
what
You
you started
mentioned it.
what you started a second ago, and then sort of moved to this.
I'm sorry.
Well, no. What a title company does at closing, and I've never been an escrow officer. I've always been an underwriting attorney for 31 years. I've never closed like you do. But she or one of her assistants or her team will get the payoff of the mortgage on the property. If there's a judgment or a lien, we'll have to get the payoff of those or work with the creditor to give us a release of that lien. So they're working on curing those things. She'll also have to get the tax certificate, to review the tax certificate, to see if the taxes are current. Are we going to need to collect those or are we not? Then you do the proration between the buyer and seller under the terms of paragraph 13, for example, of the 1 to 4 family
Right.
contract. So they're going to do all of that. And again, you said, maybe just a notary at a Whataburger or something, but a lot of people will just go to an attorney's office to close a transaction and have the attorney draw the deed up. But that attorney is not going to get the tax certificate to make sure the taxes are closed, or look at title to make sure that there's not any gaps or problems with the chain of title. So that's, to me, what the closer does is all the money stuff, and they're working with the lender to
Right.
make sure that's all done correctly as well.
Right. And were you going to mention, you may have just mentioned it, but prorating the taxes and what that means and what that looks like. I know so Charles yesterday when he was talking about what a home buyer would bring to closing, a lot of times their misunderstanding is, well, I just have to bring the down payment. And it's like, no, he calls it the CTC, the cash to close, and he breaks it down into 3 major categories. And one of those is the taxes that people, I think that they misunderstand or may not quite see that. If you guys want to explain that a little bit, or.
So for tax proration,
Yes.
Brazoria County taxes are collected in arrears, so they usually don't come out till about mid-October.
Right.
So if you're gonna close from January to mid-October, we're gonna collect from the seller January 1st through the date of close proration based off of what the previous year's taxes are. And then that's a credit that they're gonna give to the buyer, and then the buyer's gonna pay the entire taxes at the end of the year, either themselves or through an escrow account with their lender.
Right.
And then if you close once the taxes come out, then it's gonna be reversed. Where the seller's gonna pay the full taxes, the buyer's gonna pay the seller back their credit from close date to the end of the year.
Right.
And that'll take care of the taxes for that year. And then the next year will be either the buyer or the escrow account.
Okay.
One other thing to keep in mind real quick also, when she's doing those prorations, if the seller had a homestead exemption or an over 65 exemption or a disabled veteran exemption, sometimes we have to back those out in our prorations because it's an heir selling property, it's an executor selling property. The person who qualified for those died 3 years ago, and so we also have to take into consideration exemptions, and I think that upsets a lot of sellers
It
sometimes
does.
when we do that.
Well, yeah, and I know whenever, like I said, I've brought it up before, but the buyer's net, you know, we have to look at it, taxes without exemptions is kind of what we go off of. We never go off of with exemptions because it doesn't always qualify
Right.
for the client. Okay, let's see. Okay, we'll kind of just wrap it up. What advice, and I mean this could be from anybody because you guys have been in this for a long time, but what advice would you give to someone buying or selling their home regarding the title process? Like what would be something that you would encourage them to do maybe from start to closing, if you have any?
Being a buyer and a seller, or
Let's do
realtor?
buyer first.
Okay.
So what advice would you give to a potential buyer in reference to using a title company?
I have two
Go
things.
ahead.
I always have two things. I'm so sorry, you guys.
Don't be sorry.
One
This is good.
One thing is consider up front how you want to take title.
Mhm.
For example, we've had people at the closing table say, "Oh,
I'd
you
like
know
to
what?
take it with a Diet Coke and lime.
I want to put it in a trust. I want to put it in my LLC. I want to put it in an entity I own," rather than, well, if the contract says they're buying it individually, then, and their lender thinks they're borrowing individually, if they try to change at the last minute, that's going to be, we got to stop. Lender's going to have to evaluate it. We're going to have to evaluate it. So think of that up front. And then also, we've already touched on this, but I'm going to repeat this. Look at the commitment. Look at the commitment. If you're buying a property, look at Schedule B to see the restrictive covenants, utility easements, the oil and gas leases, what you're getting into. With so many times people think it's only the seller that should look at at Schedule C, for example, because they've got to help fix problems. Buyer needs to look at it all as well, just to know what they're getting into. So be proactive, communicate with your title company. Don't expect them to do everything for you. Don't expect the realtor to do everything for you. Don't expect the lender. Each of those people are going to do their own part to help facilitate the closing and get you where you're going, because each of us know our part so well. But you've got to be involved. You've got to take an active interest and, again, communicate. Help us get the things that we need so we can get to closing.
Can you touched a little bit about, or you said the words trust and LLC and deed and claim to title. I mean, all of these words, like as an agent, especially as a rookie, they're just kind of thrown around. Can you explain clearly what they are?
Sure.
Like, okay, so let's start with trust.
Right. So a trust is it's a relationship really, where, let's say I own property individually. My name is Lisa Bevel. I may create the Bevel Family Trust. So I will convey by deed from Lisa Bevel, because title's vested in my name only, I'll convey title via a deed to the Bevel Family Trust. Sorry, I said that wrong. To Lisa Bevel as the trustee of the Bevel Family Trust, because it needs to be conveyed in the trustee. So now I, as the trustee, hold beneficial title subject to the terms of a trust agreement. Most families create a trust agreement for sort of estate planning reasons, or, so that during my lifetime, until I don't want to anymore, I'm going to act as the trustee, which means I'm going to gather the assets that are put into the trust and oversee the property and distribute any money to pay whatever needs to be paid, the mortgage, the insurance, whatever. Upon my death, then the trust will say, okay, now my nephew Michael is the successor trustee, and the property is to be divided into two trusts, one for him and one for his brother. So again, bottom line, it's a way to create a relationship, because people used to call it an entity. A trust is not truly an entity. It's a relationship between the trustee, who holds title to the property for the benefit of the people named in the trust agreement. My nephew's in my example that I want the property to ultimately go to. So it's not owned by me individually anymore. It's owned by the trustee of the trust on behalf of the people that I created the trust to benefit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, and I would love to hear it from you, because this is something that even in real estate school, I just could not get in my head. The difference between a deed of trust.
And mortgage. So a deed is the document you convey title to.
Deed document.
Right. So as a general rule, we use a warranty deed or a general warranty deed in
That's
Texas.
the good one.
That's the good one.
Yeah.
There's also a couple other type I won't even name them, but general warranty deed. So that is a document of title. You convey title in a deed. A deed of trust means basically it's the lien. And when you buy property, as the buyer buys property, they're going to sign a promissory note, which is their personal promise to pay. And they're also going to sign a deed of trust that effectively says, hey, lender, I'm basically putting this property in trust to you, if you will, to secure my repayment of the money I just borrowed from you. In the event that I default on my payments to you, or I don't keep the insurance that you want me to keep, or what have you, then you, lender, can foreclose that lien that's created in this deed of trust and take the property back. So a deed is a conveyance, a document you convey title with. A deed of trust creates a lien on the property to secure your repayment of the money you owe the lender. Once you pay the lender, they'll give you a release of that lien. Does that make sense?
And then you get the deed.
Well, no, the deed is already there, and that's the thing. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So a lot of people think of deeds like car titles, like car titles. It's not the same at all. A deed between me and you would need to be recorded in the real property records to be effective. Once it's been recorded, it's done. You are the owner of the property, but your ownership is subject to the deed of trust, which is a lien on the property, which means if you don't pay, the lender can foreclose that lien and take the property from you.
But they can't do it with a homestead.
They can on a homestead even. For a deed of trust, if you've borrowed money to buy that homestead and you don't pay, they can foreclose the lien and take that homestead. It's only abstracts of judgment, federal tax liens, and child support liens, those types of liens that can't be foreclosed against the homestead in Texas.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, ask the attorney.
Okay, exactly.
Ask the attorney.
That's when we have this, obviously here to.
Well, and the thing is like these, okay, coming from a background that had no idea what any of this means, and I'll be honest, whenever my husband and I signed our paperwork over when we bought our house, I didn't read it, and I know for a fact that none of y'all did either. So, but now it's like I'm trying to be a responsible party for my client, and I'm wanting to convey understanding of what it is that they're signing. And it's very difficult when you're in it and it's not explained very clearly, because it can be very daunting. These are things that can be very daunting, and it's almost, I don't want to say it's confusing, it's so nice to hear it very clearly explained. It's so nice to hear it very clearly explained. Have you noticed any recent trends in the title industry? I know that's kind of probably a strange, have you noticed anything that's different? We haven't seen one of those in a while. Or, that's strange. Haven't thought about that. Anything like that?
You know the one I've heard recently, and I don't know if y'all have seen it around here. For the longest time, we did not see assumable loans.
Oh, okay, so I'm also an investor, so this is perking my ears.
Because, really, a lender wants to evaluate each borrower, the person who signs a promissory note to make sure they're credit worthy, right? To make sure they're going to be able to pay that loan back. So as a general rule, most lenders would prefer that if I sold the property to you, you're not going to just assume my loan, you're going to go fill out an application and get a loan of your own. When interest rates were declining so much, when they were so low, people would be just like, it's fine, I'll get my own loan because I can get a 2.4 or 2.5 or whatever. Now that interest rates are so high, buyers are saying, gosh, can I assume your loan so I can have your 2.5 interest instead of the current 6.7 or whatever it is? And I've heard, though I haven't seen firsthand, some people that say they're starting to see some assumable loans again. Have you had to close any of those?
Not yet.
Not
no.
yet?
So I actually, he's a title attorney out of Austin. His name is Alan Shushker. And I actually went to one of his trainings But he's saying that he is seeing a lot of those, and I mean, he's calling them wraps, the wraparound mortgages. And that in and of itself is a very difficult concept. We won't go into it if y'all don't want to.
Oh, no, that's just a little bit different than an assumable loan.
Oh, okay.
Because in an assumable loan, you assume the existing deed of
Yes,
trust. You're
correct.
just, whereas a wrap is, you sign your own deed of trust with your lender or with the seller who's doing seller financing,
Yes.
but the existing deed of trust is still out there. So what happens too many times is, if I've wrapped your deed of trust, if you're seller financing, I make my payments to you.
Yes.
You're supposed to turn around and pay your lender.
Right.
If you're a bad girl and you don't do that,
Then the mortgage company is going to wonder what's happening.
but they may foreclose your lien,
Right.
which will wipe mine out that came later in time.
Mm-hmm.
So I did everything I could by paying you. You didn't pay your lender, so when they foreclose your lien, it wipes out my interest in any money I put in. So be care of wraps.
It's a very messy process, and I'm still trying to, no pun intended, wrap my head around it but it is, unfortunately, the people that were buying at interest rates that were so low, during times of COVID, and because of the increase in taxes, they're finding it very difficult to try to make those payments now.
Mm-hmm.
And they won't have an option, or they're running into the option of, we don't want to foreclose, what options do we have? So that's another discussion, but I'm glad that you brought that up, because that is something that perks my interest, and especially my husband too. Okay. This is for me, but what is one thing that you as title companies wish every real estate agent or every real estate professional would understand when we go to work with you guys as a title company? What is something that you could point out for, especially like me learning this? I see you smiling.
Well, especially an agent being able to read through the commitment and seeing that maybe issues that need to be cleared, that you're aware and go to your client and get help. We do our side, but we also need certainly agents, and I was an agent prior to doing what I do now, so it's just important to be as educated as possible, and
Actually,
so that
really
you
good.
can help. Yeah, definitely, when you get it.
Right, exactly.
Very helpful.
It would to provide all of the contact information. So on the contract, if we don't have your party's contact information and an issue does come up that we need to address, I don't know how to get in touch with them. So sometimes if I can't get in touch with the agent and I can't get in
You
touch
can't
with
get in touch with agents?
y'all are busy.
Don't tell me that! Don't tell me that.
And so contact information is very important.
Good.
And so if that could be on the contract so that we have it, that would be very, very helpful in getting curative issues solved.
So I've heard contact information, I've heard reading the title commitment, understanding what each
Right.
A, B, C, and D schedules
Yes.
are included in it.
And if there's a loan, the seller gives permission for us to get the payoff information. That's very important that during that listing agreement, that'd be a great time to get that information, the lender information. And we have those forms that we can share that you can take with you on a listing.
And that's
As
for the
well.
seller to get
Seller.
what their outstanding loan
Yes,
balance
if
is.
there's a loan.
So when the
Correct.
processor sends the commitment out, they usually send that form so that you can pass it on to your client for them to fill out, which tells us their marital, their loan information if they have one, everything we need to work on Schedule C if there's any issues.
See, the reason why I'm acting clueless is because I've only done a cash deal. That's the only closing that I've had is a
Hey.
cash closing. So I haven't had the privilege of seeing all the things.
We still have curative on cash deals.
Okay, well.
No, yours was just clean.
Yeah, mine was very clean. Praise the Lord.
Nice.
Lisa, you keep tapping.
I've got one nerdy thing that I want attorneys to know, realtors to know about
Yes.
title insurance. We know the law in Texas having to do with real estate, we really do. But there are times when, even when the law seems black and white, the title company may want curative that may seem gray. Let me give you an example. As you mentioned earlier, abstracts of judgment are not enforceable against homestead in Texas. However, when we do a search, if there's any HAs recorded against the seller, we're going to put those on Schedule C, and we're going to want those paid off and or released at or prior to closing. We have sellers and their attorneys calling and basically telling us we're stupid title company, because this is the homestead, that lien doesn't attach, you need to take it off Schedule C. we don't want to have to foot the bill for a lawsuit, even though we think we'd win, to prove, hey, judgment creditor, this was the seller's homestead, therefore the AJ didn't attach. So we might win, but we'd lose in the long run by having to pay all the attorney's fees and court costs to win in court. We would rather go ahead and get the release prior to closing to remove that cloud on title, so that buyer doesn't have to worry about the judgment creditor of their seller trying to foreclose that lien, and then them having to defend to prove that it was their homestead and therefore the AJ didn't attach. And also, let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard of a seller who at closing has already moved into a new home?
Yes.
Okay, and so Texas says you can only have one homestead at a time, right?
Yes.
So once you've moved into the new home, that's your homestead. You abandoned, therefore, your interest in the old homestead.
Well, then it's
So
up
at
to
the
the
time of
state.
closing, the AJ is a valid lien on that property. So again, long story short on that is, we know the law, but based on our claims histories, we may require a little additional curative to clear the cloud on title, even though the law may provide a black and white answer. The AJ is not enforceable against
You
homestead.
keep saying AJ. What?
Oh, I'm so sorry, I did that again.
It's
I'm so
fine.
used to doing this. An AJ is an abstract of judgment.
Ah,
If
okay.
a person is sued and they get a judgment against them, their judgment creditor can put an abstract or a copy of that judgment in the real property records. And by doing that, once the AJ is recorded, it will attach to any property interest owned by the person who lost the lawsuit in the real property records of that county.
And so since that's a judgment, that would be in Schedule C?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then, just to clarify, because I may have, newer agents watching, liens and encumbrances, you had mentioned those earlier. We learned about those in real estate school. Again, those are things that were just easily thrown around. So my understanding is liens and encumbrances are basically like obstacles that you're gonna have to overcome.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm. Because again, using the purchase money deed of trust as an example, your lender wants you to sign a deed of trust that acknowledges if you default in your payments, they can foreclose that. So that's a cloud, I guess a cloud on your title, an encumbrance on your title. It's something that's there that you need to be aware of. If an abstract of judgment is recorded, it's recorded against the property. It's something that affects the property that you own. If you buy a property that's in has an HOA that has dues that are due,
Right.
there's a lien on the property to secure that. So again, it's one last one real quick, a utility easement at the rear of your property.
I have that, that's currently on my, yeah.
That's an encumbrance on your property as well.
Mhm.
You're buying subject to that. So liens and encumbrances are basically documents that have been recorded in the real property records that affect your property that you need to be aware of because they affect your ownership in some way.
There's actually two on mine, so, or I say mine on my clients. There's one in the back that's a utility easement, and then there's a Highline easement
Mhm.
that's becoming an encumbrance for septic.
Lovely.
This is my first listing. But anyways, I can't tell you how much I've learned. I've so badly just wanted to sit with you because you're just a people say wealth of knowledge, but you're like a well, just continuing to pour it out. So, any last words, or I know you probably have stories and things like that, but anything just burning on the tip of your tongue that you want to tell new agents coming into the industry, or maybe even an agent that's been doing it for a while and is considering doing something with title?
My last words are ask questions. You know, don't be afraid to ask questions. There's so many of us at the title company, any title company, that have been around a while, and we would like to answer these questions. We'd like to explain to you what we do and why we require certain things, so you'll know and you can pass it on to your customer or your client. Because there's again too many misconceptions out there, and if you don't ask the questions, you're never going to learn. Ask the title company, ask the lender, ask your surveyor, ask the inspector. If you have questions, ask them.
The hard thing is I think, and I've said this word before, it's intimidating because you feel like, well, I should know all these things. It's okay that you don't.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
okay.
Because there's new things that come up
Mhm.
all the time.
Yeah.
I mean,
To me,
Lisa, Kim, Taylor, our manager, I mean, it's crazy the
that's one of
things
the
that
things
come
I love
up.
about
that
the
you-
title industry. It's always
Constantly
changing.
learning.
Even though
Oh,
I've
for
been here
sure.
31 years now, there's always new things coming up.
So
it keeps
don't ever feel
Yeah.
like you
Don't
always
ever
ask.
feel
Feel-
like you
yes.
can't ask.
Always.
because then you'll know, and then the next time you'll be able to just tell your client that, and they'll be like, "Man."
And you can help
wow,
somebody else.
she's
That's
awesome.
what
Wow,
hers.
like you know so much. It's like, no, I just rewatched my podcast over and over. No, but yeah, I so appreciate it. And again, as from someone that was truly ignorant when coming into this, it was title and lending and, you know, all these things that were just part of it. It's like, I don't know where to start. And it's so nice to see because, again, like I said, in school, you hear escrow agent, escrow officer. Are they the same thing? Are they synonymous? And then you hear title and deed and quitclaim deed and cloud on title. And it's like, the underwriter. Are they really an underwriter? Are they an undertaker? It's like, what are they? I mean, it's just, you're people. There's people that are doing this, and you guys are so approachable. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a homegrown tomato from Brazoria County, but I will say that Great American Title, Fran, like I said, she comes into our office, and it's literally a party because she comes with a candy bar and a beautiful envelope. And we just know that that's a good time. And Kristen, I had something come up with my property, and Kristen was like, well, let me check on that for you. And she's literally like a little detective agent, you know, on top of everything else that she has to do. And then, of course, the magnificent attorney who has graced us with her presence.
Well, kudos to you for doing this. So this is wonderful.
Yeah,
'cause
thank you.
I've been doing it so long, I forget that there are people new that might have questions like that. So this is good that you're putting this together for people to use as
I
a
really
reference. So
appreciate
good
you
for
guys taking the time to even teach us and be willing to share just your wealth of knowledge. I really appreciate it. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to message me. Also, I just want to say thank you guys. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for making our lives easier, and thank you just for being people liking people.
Thank you.
So this is Meg Spear Realtor Podcast, and I will see you next episode.